He made a beckoning motion to the men, and I felt the sting of hypocrisy. After all, he was the one who filled my head with terrors. Wild animals, thorns, sinkholes, bear traps, snakes, and monsters. Monsters? I'd asked. Especially monsters, he nodded. Lynn, we never, ever go in the woods. Not even you? Not even me, Peanut. I almost called out for him, but something about the way he walked with the men caused me to hesitate. Daddy was never in a hurry, his hands usually deep in his pockets, his boots lifting and falling in a routine rhythm. He now seemed to scurry along with the three men, deep into the foliage, all carrying lanterns, despite the mid-afternoon sunlight. When he had almost disappeared into the green, I threw open the door and followed. Mrs. Ross would have her head thrown back and would be deep into a snore by now anyway. The rule about the woods was for both of us, Daddy. Last fall, I brought home a balloon from the Davidson County Fair, and the string had slipped from my grasp, despite my taffy-coated fingers. I watched it float into the woods and become ensnared in a low-hanging cluster of branches. I could see the bobbing of the purple balloon not far from where I'd stood. I'd called for Daddy to fetch it for me. It couldn't have been more than a yard away. He'd just shook his head and took me by the hand into the house. I told myself I'd watch him and the men from a distance, enough to know that he was all right. If something happened, I'd go for help, pretending to be some sort of lookout, help temper the gnawing feeling in my stomach. After a 10-minute walk, they stopped in a small clearing. Daddy looked around and motioned to the man in the suit. He pointed to a corner of the grove, and the man hurried over and nodded in grim acknowledgment. I hid behind the trunk of a maple tree that had squeezed itself into life among the oaks. Squinting, I could not only see what the man was looking at on the ground, but could read what was written upon it. My narrowed eyes widened. On a count of 3, the men lifted the glass canisters above their heads. The two wearing glasses clearly struggled, their doughy triceps trembling in short-sleeved shirts. The man in the suit held his own, as did Daddy. All began to walk, holding the lanterns, peering into the glass intently. Inside, black spots began to sputter upwards, just as a batch of twigs beneath my uncomfortable shoes betrayed me. At the sound of the snapping wood and the sight of my blue-pleated skirt peeking out from behind the tree, the lantern fell from Daddy's hand, shattering to the forest floor. I gasped, covering my mouth in a futile attempt to hide myself. I watched as small beetles began to crawl on the large pieces of broken glass now scattered between the men. Ladybugs drunkenly flew in unexpected escape, unsure of what to do with their newfound freedom. I braced myself, as all children do when their parents' eyes simultaneously become too white and too pinched. Daddy reached me in seconds, his hands gripping my arms with unfamiliar fierceness. "What are you doing?" He scooped me up and carried me back through the trees. Although my vision bobbed as Daddy's shoulder threatened to crash against my chin, I still saw the men gaping, straining their necks to watch as I was hustled away. Only when the man in the suit kneeled on the ground where Daddy had pointed did the other two tear their gaze from me. The last thing I saw was the man in the suit looking at the forest floor, covering his mouth in shock. When we were once